Money Radio, discussing the business of making and spending money.
Hello, everyone. You're welcome to today's edition of Money Radio, a program that brings you the latest development on business and economy cycles in Nigeria and other parts of the world. My name is Innocent Odo, and together we shall look at the tourism sector. And in today's edition, we are talking about the return of the stolen assets, the stolen artifacts belonging to the Benin Kingdom from Germany. What happened? Hello, you are welcome to today's edition of Money Radio, a program that brings to you the latest developments in Nigeria's business and economy cycles and issues of business around the world. My name is Innocent Odu, and together we shall look at the tourism sector with special focus on the return of the stolen Benin artifacts from Germany and the significance of the Nigerian cultural history and heritage. Before we go into the issue of the day, let's take some news tidbits. And in the news, the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation, NNPC, has said that the Port Harcourt refinery, which is undergoing a $1.5 billion rehabilitation, will start delivering refined products by September 2020. This is coming after the NNPC, earlier in April 2021, officially signed the contract with Tecnimont SPA for the rehabilitation of the refinery. $1.5 billion rehabilitation of the Port Harcourt Refinery Company has commenced in full, and part of the facility will start delivering refined products by September next year, the Nigerian Petroleum Corporation has said. The NNPC officially signed the contract. The NNPC officially signed the contract with Tecnimont SPA for the $1.5 billion rehabilitation program of the Port Harcourt Refinery on April 6th. And parties to the agreement announced the commencement of the project. Now, despite the rise in crude oil prices above $75 per barrel at the international market, there are indications that the Nigerian crude oil production has recorded a decline by 7,000 barrels per day of 1.48 billion barrels per day in June against 1.55 billion in that of May. This is despite the positive rise in the combined oil output from the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, OPEC, for June. The group, known as OPEC Plus, added 540,000 barrels per day of crude in June, and to a market hungry for oil as summer kicked off, according to the latest S&P Global Plate survey. Residents of Ondo and Ekiti states protest alleged abandoning of 22 billion naira Akure Ondo Ekiti dualization project. The residents, they trooped out to the Iboba axis of the highway in Akure metropolis to show their displeasure over the deplorable state of the road and lack of commitment on the part of starting the project. According to them, the state of the road has continued to aid activities of criminals engaging in kidnappings and killings. And also in the news, The Science Granting Council initiative of the Sub-Saharan Africa today announced that the Nigerian Tertiary Education Trust Fund, TED Fund, has joined the initiative to advance research excellence in Sub-Saharan Africa. TED Fund is an agency that set up by the federal government of Nigeria to provide supplementary support to all levels of public tertiary institutions. Its research and development support is becoming an institutional reference and has changed Nigeria's narrative in many aspects. Nigeria is already a major producer of research in Africa, though a recent study suggests that it has the clear potential to do more, given the number of its universities, about 196, think tanks, and research professionals. LGCI is facilitated by the UK's West Africa Research and Innovation Hub, Nigeria. Then that's it for the news. We'll take a short break. When we return, we'll get back to business on the issue of the returned artifacts from Germany and the controversies surrounding it. That's when we return.
Money Radio, discussing the business of making and spending money.
Welcome back. I'm now being joined by my analyst here, who will help me do justice to this very important topic of the return of Benin artifacts from Germany, and of course the brewing controversy around the ownership. I'm being joined by Isaac Amuria. Isaac is a tourism expert and analyst. Isaac, you're welcome to the program.
Pleasure to be here, Innocent.
I also have Kayode Falode. Kayode, you're welcome.
Thank you, Innocent.
And then, of course, we have also joining us Jerry Emerson. Jerry, you're welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me on the show.
Okay, thank you so much for joining us. Now, let's begin with you, Jerry. How would you react to the news of the return of about 1,130 artifacts belonging to the Benin Kingdom?
Well, it's a thing that we should, Nigerians should be happy about, not just people from that extraction, the Benin Kingdom. Nigerians should be happy about the news, and that sometime next year, in 2022, these artifacts will be repatriated back to the country, because if you look at it, some of these artifacts were stolen during when Africa was colonized, sometime in 1897. During the British troops, came in and moved some of these artifacts and auctioned them out there in many countries of in Europe, basically, and they've been there all the while. And even some other countries like Scotland, Aberdeen University also have some of these artifacts. So it is something. It's a cherry news that there are moves to repatriate these looted assets back into the country and to the Benin Kingdom as well.
Okay, let me come to you, Kayode.
Okay.
The news of the return of the artifacts. Of course, Jerry has said that because they are so valuable then, even now, so the British troops had to invade areas where they are kept, and of course, in our own parlance, we say they desecrated these areas and took away valuable materials belonging to the Nigerian people, the Benin Kingdom, a very proud kingdom in Nigeria up to this moment. So, how do you react to this very development?
Well, it's a good development and a very welcome one, for that matter. So we are happy that this has come and that it's happening before our very eyes. It's a good thing. But efforts have been made in the past to retrieve some of these artifacts, and one of the most prominent ones that I recall now is the artifact, the mask used for the first tag 77. The Nobel laureate, Professor Wole Soyinka and some of his friends, even the former President Obasanjo then was the military head of state. So efforts were made, both straight and crooked, and at the end of the day, they could not succeed. So even when we hosted the first tag 77, we used how do I put it? It was, I don't want to say a counterfeit. It was a copy. It wasn't the original mask that was used. So it's shameful. For these things to come, it's a good development.
It's a very good development indeed, and Nigerians are excited and happy about that. One thing is very sure, Isaac. The Benin artifacts actually represent and reflect the rich cultural heritage of the Benin Kingdom, and also other kingdoms that are neighbors to Benin Kingdom, also shared in such rich historical heritage of making sophisticated sculptures like we have of Benin bronze and other materials that reflected the splendor of the ancient times when we had those sprawling empires. And at a point in the history of Nigeria, we had this invasion from outside, which desecrated our system and our culture and cut away some of these valuable things for us. Now we have them we're returning back to Nigeria. So what value do you think the return of these artifacts would add to the tourism sector, for instance?
Yes, thank you, Innocent. Very good background there you have established. In terms of the value, I tell you, if you put all these assets together and you auction them in the right market, because we have a specialized market, for artworks, we are talking about hundreds of millions of euros, if you aggregate everything, okay? So, and some of this, or most of this, much of these artifacts were carted away in 1897 during the British punitive expedition in Benin. And between then and now, these people have been exhibiting these works in their private museums, in public museums, and they have been collecting money, whether as gate takings, or exhibition shows, And in fact, there are even there are several dimensions to if you want to look at the economic value. There's a branch in engineering that is called mimetic. What mimetic means is you just mimic. You see something, you replicate it. So I'm sure, it will interest you to know that some of these car designs that you see today, you say, this one has antelope face. This one has, and all that. So what engineers do these days, that branch of engineering, those who specialize in that, what they do is to just go to museums, look at the artistic representations of these animals, because most of these animals have gone extinct. You can't find them again. So they just go through this, they take pictures. So when you see them taking pictures, you think they don't know what they're doing. They actually know what they're doing. They take those pictures back, they process them and sell them to these big, auto, firms. You understand it? So that is just, that is one area. You get it. If you look at the face of a train, for example,
Yes,
it's like a needle, but it's actually designed after the face of the earthworm. You understand? So that is how far you can actually go with this, with this object.
Yes.
So for us, the value it will add, yes, we will need to establish a museum, a global museum, a museum of world class that would attract people, to come and see these objects for education purpose, and for social and other purposes. Okay, and of course, when they come, people are going to collect money, then work out how the money will be shared between the original owner, who is the royal father, the Oba of Benin, and of course other stakeholders that who want to work with him, on that project.
Yes, there's something you raised very important here, very important.
Yeah.
That's we're talking about the addition, the plus of these artifacts to the tourism sector of the Nigerian economy, and how, just like you said, we're going to make it more expansive in order to attract people to come view these historical, materials that have reflected our cultural heritage all over, all from time immemorial. Now, there's another thing that we may have been missing, which is, of course, that the long years that these artifacts have been stolen away, and that they were supposed to add value to the Nigerian economy, for instance, if we have to put them in a place. I don't know whether it is good enough that we can quantify the economic loss or losses that we have incurred as a result of these materials, being out of our own shores for that long time before this, prospect of its returning back to the country.
Yeah, well, like I said, we don't have the data on our fingertips, but those who stole the artifacts, they know how much they have been making.
That's true.
You understand? And they've been foot dragging about returning these artifacts. This whole campaign started in the time of Oba Kenzwa of blessed memory. And after him, the successor also continued. So they've been returning them in bits and pieces. You get it? And they just make a show of it. You get it? They go to the media and all of. If you acknowledge that your forefathers stole these artifacts from the rightful owners, return them. You don't need to go through any, bureaucracy. Just gather everything and return them. You understand it? So I see the Europeans not being very sincere, about returning these artifacts. Because if they were, they of course won't be going through this whole process.
Now, Kayode, please, is it possible that we can actually exact any form of penalty on these Europeans for the theft of these valuable items that belong to us? And then also looking at the losses we have incurred over the years. Is it possible that we do that now? How can we exact that type of a penalty on them?
Thank you very much. I think before we go to penalty or whatever, let's get these things from them first. What about other countries? Let's try to load Germany for
making efforts
to return. What about other countries? What about Britain, who actually was led the assault? So I think what we should first do is just gather. Let's speak with one voice, even from home. Charity, they say below. Starts from so we should do that, and I think we are not getting it right in that angle. Even look at this. What is happening right now?
Yes. So I'm coming to that.
Okay. Now, if we should just, and it's not even about the monetary value alone. It's what about the historical, value.
Yes.
What we've lost. They say when you know your history, you know where you're coming from, and you know where you're going to.
Yes.
Now, a lot of these things, a lot of Africans, not Nigeria alone, have lost a whole lot of from these artifacts, from so many things to. So I think what we should do is sit back, go to the drawing table again, harness our resources, and get all these things first. Then we'll now talk about reparation. And then we'll now talk about reparation.
Okay. Now, Jerry, in all over the world, tourism is a very, very important sector in any nation's economy. As a matter of fact, many countries actually invest so much in that sector. And this particular, historical materials are usually what you see when you visit some tourist sites in some countries. Like if you have ever visited China, you go to a place called the Beijing Great Wall, you can see that it's something of significance to the people. There's this history behind it. It did with some of the ancient ways of defense. There's a story behind that wall. Now, there are so many other artifacts representing individuals who made that happen, representing them in so many of the strengths and areas that they have helped to build the Chinese society. So tourism is also part of building the socio-economic development of a nation. Now, with the return of this artifact, how would you think that the Nigerian government and stakeholders can actually, like Kayode said, harness this powerful resource and use it to project our image, and of course sustain that sector which seem not to be doing well at the moment?
Okay, thank you very much. Just like what is happening, yeah, just like the British holding on to all these artifacts and displaying them in their museums for people to visit and then pay money to see some of these things. We can do that here. When these items or assets are being repatriated back into the country, we can set up a national. I think we have a national museum.
Yes.
We can bring some of these things, place them in this museum so that people can come in even outside the country and even within the country to visit these places and pay money to that would be a source of revenue for the government.
Definitely a source of revenue, Isaac. That's what people always want to hear when you talk tourism, revenue. I understand that in Israel, if you visit some of the tourist sites, maybe Mount Sinai, so not Mount Tabo, Mount Gilboa, and all the mountains where there are great miracles were performed and great wonders were performed, the Israeli government, I think, rakes in nearly $5 billion every year on tourism alone. And that's a huge amount of money. In Saudi Arabia, even the Hajj alone also they rake in about $12 billion annually from that. Now you go to Indonesia, the countries around the world, they are home in Africa. Kenya, you hear about the Masai Mara in Kenya, that rakes them about $4 billion per annum. South Africa, Namibia, Zimbabwe, and all these, small African countries Kenya have done so well in this sector. We have to take a short break. When we return, we continue the discussion.
Money Radio, discussing the business of making and spending money.
Welcome back. We're still talking tourism and, of course, the focus on the return of the Benin artifacts to Nigeria. And I was asking Isaac, before we went on that short break, the importance of tourism as it concerns Nigeria's economy, vis-a-vis what we see around the world. Using this Benin, a return of these Benin artifacts, probably to stimulate this sector. Now that we have the rest of the world, or we have announced to the rest of the world that we are ready to bring in this asset and make them productive as part of our tourism. How do we re-engineer that sector using this opportunity?
Yes, we're at a time in our history where countries around the world are planning for the post-COVID era, where they are thinking of how to restart the economy after all we lost, to COVID. So some efforts have been made, in the state. The state governor came up with an initiative to say, okay, we need to have a museum, so that we can, get these assets, exhibit them, for a global, markets. So that effort needs to be applauded, because it is actually the first time, to the best of my knowledge, that we're seeing concerted, effort by a government, a subnational government, supporting pockets of individuals, that have been, in the forefront, of this campaign for the return of these artifacts. However, we saw what happened. If you've been following news reports, how the Oba, Royal Majesty, came out to say no. Some steps were not taken, by the state government before they went ahead to do what they did. Okay. Yes, I think some things need to be put in perspective.
To be streamlined.
Yes.
I was okay. Take it up from there.
Yes, because
they need less controversy.
Yes.
Now the federal government has also said that they might take charge of the artifact. So are they supposed to do that?
For instance, I think they are misconstruing a lot of things. These artifacts are the Oba's property. Let us just get that fact right.
He's the custodian of those properties.
Yeah, they are his property. The guild that makes the bronze is an institution of the palace. And what they used to do then was they would go to the palace to see a function that is performed by the Oba. They take notes, mental notes, and go and replicate what they saw in art form, in sculpture. And at the end, they deliver the pieces to the Oba. So the guild, that is the Gun, the Onwena, and the Besama. It's that I'm from Besama. It is our role to actually maintain and beautify the inner chambers of the palace. Okay? So our great-grandfathers used to do this, and they would hand them over to the Oba. They were not even doing business with it until a charter was given for them to go commercial. So these assets are not for the Benin Kingdom as erroneously believed. They are for the Oba. So if you are embarking on any initiative that would help us maximize the benefit around these assets, that consultation must start from the Oba's palace. So the Oba must give his blessing to that. I think that is where they are getting, the whole thing wrong. Perhaps there was miscommunication. I don't want to say that the governor, as the son of the soil, didn't know what he was supposed to do. No. Perhaps there was miscommunication because the royal father is high, is so revered, that sometimes you wouldn't know his itinerary. Sometimes he's doing some performing some rites. You don't go near the palace at those times and all that. Okay. So these efforts have been made. The Oba has come out to say, hey, these are my assets. But in the interim, the federal government can keep them. Okay, in the interim.
Yes.
Okay, so, but I still believe that, like the governor rightly said last week, he issued a statement to say no. He's going to seek audience with the Oba. They are going to iron out, this issue once and for all. Because the trip he did to Germany with the minister, the crown prince of the kingdom was in company, on that trip too. So, which means they actually. The government is ready to work, with the palace on this project. So we hope that this, the result will translate to, a museum for the, the Benin people and for the world, as a matter of fact, so that when they bring these assets, we'll have a place to exhibit them. Then people can come from everywhere, to see them. Make payments, those that want to use it for knowledge acquisition sake,
yes.
Those who want to do it for enjoyment and all of that. So whatever they pay, they should be able to work out a structure that will reward the Oba, the owner,
yes.
Then and of course other stakeholders.
Oh, you are speaking like the son of the soil.
So that's the way to go.
Kaido, let me come to you now on the issue before our time we wrap up the program. Okay. Now, the question of tourism as a means of re-engineering the Nigerian economy at this particular time of economic downturn, has become so important. That we must look into every detail that has to do with this sector to improve on it, to invest in it. Now, opportunity has come through this idea of our artifacts, revered artifacts coming back to the country, to boost already what we have. Now, what do you think would be the right investment in terms of the funding of issues like this, to help us actually preserve them? I understand that in the Benin Kingdom, of course, has lasted for several centuries before the coming of the Europeans. The first contact, the Benin Kingdom is actually the first, kingdom in Nigeria to make contact with the foreign powers like the Dutch, the Portuguese, and the rest of them, before even the colonial British came. So you can see that they have built that enabling capacity of having masterpieces like this that actually, in fact, amaze the world, You know, the reason, some of the reasons that these artifacts were stolen were actually because of the value that they added, that amazed those who came and saw that, wow. So these people can actually create something of this sophistication in this Africa. I mean, it was something real. It was something imaginative. It was something creative. Now, the creativity we're talking about is how we're going to deploy that to this sector that needs investment, to this sector that needs to be revived, so that people can come to Nigeria the way they go to China to see the Great Wall, the way they go to see the Temple of Heaven, for instance, the Forbidden City in China and the all parts of the world. We can see what they call the Taj Mahal in India. So many of those things, they are not better than what we have here, but we need to do the investment. What can we do about this now?
Thank you very much, Innocent. The first thing, I think the tourism sector in Nigeria has been pushed to the back, relegated to the background for a long time, and it's I think it's high time maybe a ministry was created actually for the tourism. So we don't have a ministry of tourism. Anyway, but that's just by the way. Now, tourism is a whole. It covers almost everything. You can't really quantify the extent tourism can go to develop the country, to develop everything. But one of the, when we're talking about funding now, I think the first thing we should do is that we should bring in the private sector.
Okay. Yeah. Private sector.
The private sector should be encouraged to come in and invest immensely, massively in tourism. You see, government businesses in Nigeria are not. They don't have the. They are not known to really make it at the end of the day. Yeah, no, it's just like job for the boys. Everybody will come, take and disappear. But bringing in the private sector, will make the tourism sector stronger. And we have giants. We have all these communication giants, the oil giants, everybody. So people can come and tourism. There are some countries that their forte actually is tourism. They don't have anything and they make a lot of money out of it, sustaining their economies. People are making. So let's talk about it from the airport. Even from the airport, money starts coming in. People will come. Nigeria will make a lot of money from visa. People are applying for visa. The airlines, the taxi driver, right to where the museum. We are centering on this Benin artifacts now. Look at the people around. There will be skilled laborers. There will be skilled ones. They are dependents. People will give them food. Look, we had accommodation, lodging, hotels, just like that.
They don't go.
So it's a long. So bringing in the
I wish you
private,
have. I wish you have all the time in the world. Jerry, can you say one thing just in 1 second because our time is up?
Okay. Lastly, I think for when you talked about revamping the tourism sector and especially for the artifact, I think we should when these artifacts are being repatriated and in a way to also generate revenue, I think there should be a way where some of these artifacts are being reproduced, in their likeness from like what is out there, so that people can come and buy and maybe keep them in their homes, offices, places where hotels, lobbies, and all those things. It will, in a way, generate money for.
Can I just?
Okay, just in one second.
Yeah. For example, we'll see what we have done with TED Fund. Okay, at a point when the educational system, especially higher education in Nigeria, we're actually giving up on it. So we came up with TED Fund. And how does TED Fund get its money? It gets money directly from processed from crude oil.
Yes.
So if we can also do that for the tourism sector, for example, then of course we would all the gains. If it's just 1 barrel, whatever we sell from crude oil, we put it there. Then in 10 years' time, if people are no longer, coming for our crude oil, they will know that we have investment in tourism. As we have in the United Arab Emirates.
All right. Thank you so much. I've been having a wonderful time discussing this very important topic with Isaac Amurie. Isaac, thank you once again.
Thank you.
Kayode, It's always a pleasure having
Thank
you.
you very
Thank you,
much.
Jerry. Thank you so much for being here with us. And on that note, we draw the curtains on this very edition of Money Radio. And we promise that we're going to come back next time with the bumper edition. Have a nice day and stay blessed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Money Radio, discussing the business of making and spending money.